Welcome to Trump Rewind. Trump's path to victory or defeat? 10 analysis. Donald Trump's electoral strategy focused on base loyalty, mobilizing voters through swing states, and appealing to undecided individuals. He framed himself as a victim of political persecution amid legal challenges. Economic conditions and third-party candidates influenced voter sentiment, while his media strategy leveraged social media to shape public narratives. This channel covers news and public events related to Donald Trump for informational purposes only. We do not endorse or oppose any political party or figure. Number 1. Base loyalty. Base loyalty is a crucial component of any successful political campaign, and Donald Trump's 2020 re-election effort was no exception. Trump's base remained fiercely loyal throughout his presidency, largely due to his strong populist messaging and his willingness to challenge the political establishment. His consistent focus on America First policies, such as immigration control, tax cuts, and deregulation, resonated deeply with his core supporters, many of whom felt disenfranchised by traditional politicians. Trump's ability to communicate directly with his base via social media and frequent rallies helped maintain their enthusiasm and engagement. This loyalty was evident during the election as his base turned out in large numbers, especially in rural and working-class areas. However, while base loyalty ensured a strong foundation of support, it also limited his ability to expand his appeal to more moderate or undecided voters, which was a key factor in the outcome of the 2020 election. Number 2. Swing state strategy. Trump's swing state strategy was critical to his chances of winning in 2020, as it had been in 2016. States like Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin were battlegrounds that could tip the Electoral College in either direction. Trump's campaign focused on energizing his base in these states while attempting to win over undecided voters, particularly in key demographic groups like suburban women and working-class white voters. He held numerous rallies in swing states, focusing on his administration's economic achievements, law and order, and opposing COVID-19 lockdown measures. However, the COVID-19 pandemic created new challenges in these areas, with many swing state voters expressing concern about his handling of the crisis. The results in these crucial states ultimately played a pivotal role in determining the outcome of the election, with narrow victories in several of them giving Joe Biden the electoral edge. Number 3. Response to legal challenges. The Trump campaign faced numerous legal challenges, both before and after the 2020 election. Leading up to the election, there were legal disputes over mail-in voting, voter identification laws, and election security measures, with Trump's team often arguing that these practices could lead to widespread voter fraud. After the election, Trump and his allies launched an unprecedented series of legal challenges in key states, contesting the results and alleging fraud. These lawsuits were largely unsuccessful, as courts across the country rejected the claims due to a lack of evidence. The campaign's aggressive legal response, however, energized Trump supporters and fueled the Stop the Steal movement, which culminated in the January 6 Capitol riot. The legal strategy became a central narrative of Trump's post-election efforts, although it ultimately failed to overturn the election results and led to significant controversy surrounding his legacy. Number 4. Economic conditions. Economic conditions played a pivotal role in the 2020 election, and the state of the economy was a double-edged sword for Donald Trump. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Trump frequently touted the booming economy as one of his administration's greatest achievements, pointing to record low unemployment, a rising stock market, and tax cuts that benefited businesses. However, the economic downturn caused by the pandemic drastically changed the political landscape. The sharp rise in unemployment, small business closures, and economic uncertainty became a major point of contention in the election. Trump's handling of the economic fallout, including his push to reopen the economy despite public health risks, was a key issue for many voters. While some credited Trump with keeping the economy afloat during a crisis, others blamed his administration for not doing enough to support struggling Americans. Ultimately, economic conditions influenced both Trump's base and swing voters. Number 5. Impact of third-party candidates. In the 2020 election, third-party candidates played a less prominent role than in previous cycles, but they still had a measurable impact on the final outcome. While candidates from the Libertarian and Green parties received fewer votes compared to 2016, their presence in key states may have influenced the results in some close races. Third-party candidates typically draw votes from individuals dissatisfied with the two major parties, and in a tight election, even a small number of votes for a third-party candidate can affect the margins. For Trump, the presence of third-party candidates was a potential advantage, as they could siphon votes away from Joe Biden, especially from left-leaning voters who were dissatisfied with the Democratic Party. However, the overall impact was limited, and in some states, third-party candidates took votes from Trump as well, contributing to his defeat in key battlegrounds. Number 6. Media strategy. Donald Trump's media strategy in the 2020 election was characterized by a combination of traditional media appearances and a heavy reliance on social media. His use of Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms allowed him to bypass traditional news outlets and speak directly to his supporters. This approach helped him maintain a high level of engagement with his base, who often felt that mainstream media outlets were biased against him. Trump's frequent attacks on the media, branding them as fake news, played a central role in his media strategy, as he sought to discredit negative coverage and build a narrative of opposition between himself and the press. Additionally, Trump's campaign invested heavily in digital advertising, targeting swing voters with tailored messages on social media. However, his controversial use of media also alienated some moderate voters and fueled criticism of his leadership style, particularly regarding the spread of misinformation. Number 7. Voter turnout among key demographics. Voter turnout among key demographics was a critical factor in the 2020 election. Donald Trump's strategy relied heavily on maximizing turnout among his base, particularly white working-class voters, rural Americans, and evangelicals. His campaign focused on energizing these groups with messages about the economy, law and order, and opposition to progressive social policies. However, Joe Biden's campaign also made significant inroads with key demographic groups, including suburban women, African American voters, and younger voters, many of whom were motivated by concerns about Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and racial justice issues. The increased use of mail-in voting and early voting also played a role in boosting turnout, particularly among voters who might not have participated otherwise. The result was one of the highest voter turnouts in modern U.S. history, with both campaigns successfully mobilizing their respective bases, though Biden ultimately gained the upper hand in key swing states. Number 8. Public perception of leadership. Public perception of Donald Trump's leadership was a central issue in the 2020 election, influencing how voters viewed his ability to handle the challenges facing the nation. For Trump supporters, his leadership style was seen as bold, decisive, and refreshingly unorthodox. They appreciated his willingness to take on the establishment, challenge political norms, and pursue an America First agenda. However, for many other voters, Trump's leadership style was a source of concern, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. His handling of the crisis, which included downplaying the severity of the virus and conflicting messages on public health measures, raised doubts about his ability to manage a national emergency. Additionally, Trump's often combative rhetoric, particularly on issues related to race and law enforcement, further polarized public opinion. The election became, in many ways, a referendum on Trump's leadership, with voters divided over whether his unconventional style was an asset or a liability. Number 9. Republican Party dynamics. The Republican Party dynamics during the 2020 election were shaped largely by Donald Trump's dominance over the party. Over the course of his presidency, Trump transformed the GOP, with many Republican leaders aligning themselves closely with his policies and rhetoric. While this helped energize the party's base, it also created tensions within the GOP, as some more traditional conservatives and moderate Republicans were uncomfortable with Trump's populist, combative style. In the lead-up to the election, these internal dynamics played out in both primaries and general election contests, with pro-Trump candidates often facing off against more establishment figures. The election results deepened these divisions, as some Republicans continued to support Trump's claims of election fraud, while others distanced themselves from him. Trump's influence over the party remains strong, even after his loss, with ongoing debates within the GOP about the future direction of the party and its relationship with Trump's brand of politics. Number 10. Opposition strategy. The opposition strategy in the 2020 election, primarily led by Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, was focused on presenting a sharp contrast to Donald Trump's leadership and policies. Biden's campaign emphasized themes of unity, empathy, and a return to normalcy, positioning him as a steady hand capable of healing the divisions that had intensified under Trump's presidency. The Democratic strategy capitalized on dissatisfaction with Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, racial justice issues, and economic concerns. Biden also made a concerted effort to appeal to swing voters, particularly in suburban areas, and to re-energize key Democratic demographics such as African Americans and young voters. Additionally, the opposition strategy involved highlighting Trump's controversial actions and statements, particularly in relation to his management of the pandemic and his response to racial protests. This approach helped mobilize voters who were motivated by a desire for change, ultimately contributing to Biden's victory. Thanks for watching Trump Rewind. Stay tuned for more unforgettable moments and insights from Trump's legacy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for your daily rewind.